In Year 3, in numeracy, we've been learning about column addition, chunking, and even something called MI3. It's a spy field where you basically learn about all the math skills and things like that. I enjoy it because my favourite case is the case of the lost treasure. The reason why I like it is because I enjoy doing coordinates.
This half term we have been looking at traditional tales like Cinderella and Cinderboy. These types of tales start and end with once upon a time and happily ever after. Also in literacy we have been learning how to use speech marks and punctuate them correctly. Our other literacy topic was instructional writing, and we labelled the features like the you'll need list, the equipment list, numbered steps. We did an image, and we also got to write our own, and it was really fun. It was great to write our own instructions and use our own creativity.
Science. Did you know that in the human body there are 206 bones, or that a lobster has an exoskeleton? This half term we have been learning about humans and animals.
In history, we've been learning about ancient Egyptians. Most people love it, and we've learned a lot since we started. We've learnt about how the slaves built pyramids, the 3 seasons, and all about pharaohs. And in PE, we even learnt dance about it. I think it's fun learning about all the weird things they did in the past.
In art, we studied Rangoli patterns and printed them on paper. Printing is where you draw a pattern on a piece of foam and then roll paint on it and stamp it onto a piece of paper. We studied William Morris, who used flowers, plants, trees and fruits for his inspiration. We were making samples of wallpaper. I enjoyed drawing the patterns the most.
In DT, we've been doing our toothpaste boxes on the computer. First we did it on the computer with the net, and we designed them with pictures and writing to make children and adults buy them. Next, Miss Lopez printed them out for us, and then we cut them out with sharp knives, which we use in DT sometimes, and then we just do, like, we put them together with glue and sellotape, and then we just write our names, and then we take them home.
This term we've been continuing practicing our French conversation, as well as learning the words for our part of our body. We can sing head, shoulders, knees and toes in French. Lots of people use internet search engines every day. In this term, we've been learning about how they're used and what they're used for. We've also been learning about internet safety.
In PE, we have been doing indoor PE and outdoor PE. In indoor PE, we've been doing our ancient Egypt topic, which we've been doing different emotions to sad and happy and angry. And we got to show different emotions to the class in the hall, and taking ideas to try and copy. In outdoor PE, we've been learning about hockey and using the ball properly. My friend Jacob knows lots about hockey because he goes to the hockey club, and the Mrs. Clark and Mr. Head have been teaching us hockey.
Our music lessons have helped us learn about program music that paints a picture in our mind. We really enjoyed making our own compositions, using our minds, our instruments and our bodies.
During SEAL, we have been looking at getting on and falling out, and we made friendship tokens to each other and members of the class.
In RE, we have been learning about Judaism and the Easter story. We have been writing letters for a bar mitzvah and drawing on a picture on the front. Studying the Easter story, we did Jesus from riding on a donkey to him being crucified and rising from the dead. We also made puppets to retell the story.
In Year 4, in numeracy, we have been doing two cases, the case of the stolen laptop and the case of the mixed up bread. I will tell you about the case of the stolen laptop, and then my colleague Kate will tell you about the case of the missing bread. In the case of the stolen laptop, we have been doing lots of measuring, including measuring with cups, jugs, weights and rulers. In ruler measuring, we have been measuring other people, our shoes and all sorts of things. We have also used other measuring apparatus such as meter sticks and stuff like that. In the cup measuring, we were making a truth serum to correct some people's alibis, so we found out who stole the laptop.
In the case of the mixed up bread, we did lots of calculations based on the price and the weight of the bread. We also did some chunking, which helped us slow it down, dividing with higher numbers.
We also tasted some bread on a very exciting lesson and then rated how much of the bread the class liked. Surprisingly, rye had like 0 votes and baguette had like 1 million. But we also then put it in from a tally chart into a bar chart, which we copied into our book, and that was the mathsy part.
In literacy, we have been learning about newspapers, and we learned about the differences between magazines and news articles. The difference is because magazines are more glossy and they have colour, but newspapers are mostly black and white. And then we wrote a news article about a granny who attacked some robbers.
We did poems in literacy as well, which we did a kenning poem, which is a verb, then a noun, then a verb. And we wrote one about any job we like, and before that we wrote one about our favourite animal.
We also learned about explanation texts which tell you how or why something happened. We wrote our own piece about an electrical circuit, and it tells us how the electrical circuit works.
In science in Year 4, we have been learning how sound travels through different things. We did a very exciting experiment. Over to Sam.
In science, we did sound. We did this very exciting experiment. How it worked is we filled balloons with water, air and sand. Then we held each balloon up to our ear and someone spoke through them. The louder, clearer, or quieter we could hear the person speak would rate how good the medium was. Now I will hand over to Kate to talk about solids and liquids.
We also did solids and liquids in our term. Sam will demonstrate what a solid looks like, and a liquid, and a gas. We also learned about conversion. There Here is an example. Water can turn into ice if you freeze it, and ice can turn into water if you melt it.
Plus, if you heat water to 100 centigrade, I think, it can turn into gas.
In humanities, we have been learning about Henry VIII and his 6 wives, and how he divorced one of his wives and started up a whole church just for that. We also have been acting out as Henry VIII and his wives, and we have been writing about town criers. We also learnt about the Spanish Armada, about how English won even though we had smaller ships and less men, and the Spanish lost even though they had bigger ships and more men. We also learnt about the poor and rich Tudors, and we learned what they ate. The poor ate pottage, and then, well, the rich were in their big houses eating roast.
We also went to Hampton Court for a school trip to learn more about the Tudors. There were loads of interesting paintings about Henry VIII and his 6 wives. We also did a role play about Henry's life.
In DT, we have been making our own money container. We have learnt the stitches: running stitch, oversew, backward stitch, and blanket stitch. Over to Sam.
This is my wallet or money container or whatever you want to call it. As you see, I have done a rowing stitch, Master Sam, words on the front, and overstitch seams. You could either do back stitch, but I thought that was a bit hard, so I did over sewing. As you can see with these with these poppers, we have learnt how to do running stitch, and I have done it for these poppers. They are quite secure, although I had to go around it quite a lot of times. Now to hand over to Kate to talk about hers.
I did my purse or money container for my cousin, and she has a very fashionable purse, so I put fab on it. It's quite hard to sew sequins on, as they're very tiny and hard to sew on. If I have used for the seam backward stitch, which is very easy to do for me and doesn't really show on the outside.
In that, we've been learning about Aboriginal art, which is originally from Australia. We've been making our own paintings of it with water pastels for a few weeks, and we have been making some pictures of life on paper as well, and we've been doing outside in the playground some stone pictures where we collect stones and turn them into pictures.
For sure!
In French, we have been doing animals, their habitats, and the carnival of animals. For example, l'éléphant habite dans les savanes. I will tell you what I've just said. Elephant lives in the wild.
In ICT, we have been making pictures, which we use lots of different pictures and then turn them into one big poster. We have also been recreating poems out of mixed up words. Then we use spell checker to check our work.
In music, we have been doing beats. For example, in the last lesson, which was a assessment, I believe, we played along with recorders and glockenspiels to beats. We also did glockenspiel beats and recorder beats over the year. We also used our hands like this and stuff like that. Sometimes we paired up in twos and made beats, sometimes we did threes or fours, or sometimes we just did it on our own.
In outdoor PE, we have half of the class went swimming and the other half went to basketball. In basketball, we learned all different techniques of how to shoot and pass the ball. In swimming, they learned all different strokes, such as backstroke, front crawl, and breaststroke. Over to Sam.
In indoor PE, we have been doing Tudor dancing. A boy paired up with a girl and a girl paired up with a boy. Then they did certain dance moves, such as walking around and turning and stuff like that. In the end lesson, we paired up in fours and did it all in a circle.
in our room we've been learning about Judaism and Islam. We have in Islam we've been learning how the different families pray 5 times a day, and at school the children have to learn the Quran. And in Judaism we learn that they have a special Bible called the Torah that they lock up in a special cupboard until praying time.
In PSHE, we have been learning about right and wrong and consequences in life. We also learned about friendship, how you can fall out very easily with friends, and how you should keep them together.
This term in Year 5 in numeracy, we have been doing fractions, decimals and percentages. These are some of the skills we've used to help us. Column addition, rounding, multiplication and converting.
I think maths is a little challenging because I find it hard to convert decimals into percentages, but it's a little easier because Mrs. Andrews, our teacher, makes it more fun for us to do.
In literacy after Christmas, we did poems. We were focusing on figurative language and personifications, and in Big Write we were allowed to write our own poem.
We also did explanation text on the mini market, so the next year 3s, they know what it's all like.
After that, we did some more explanation texts on how to trap and tame a dragon. We did little leaflet things, and we put all the instructions in.
After that, we did myths, and we got given a mythical beast and a character and everything, and a setting, and we got to write about it. We also did another one where we got to make up the whole thing.
Then we watched a film on piano without any dialogue, so we sort of had to figure out what he was saying, and we did a mood chart on how he was feeling during his life.
My favourite thing about literacy and extended writing that we've done since January was probably the poems and how to trap a dragon.
My favourite thing was writing the myths, because we got to make it up, and I'm really interested in Greek gods and stuff.
In science, we've been learning about life cycles, and we've also been dissecting plants. We've also been doing Mrs. NERG, which stands for Movement, Respiration, Sensitivity, Nutrition, Exploration, Reproduce and Growth.
I really like our science topic because you get to learn more about plants and how they reproduce, and I really like to dissect plants because I find it really fun.
In humanities, we've been learning about the battle and marathon and the difference between Spartans and Athenians. We looked at how the Greek democracy is similar to the modern democracy our days. The similarity is that we both things took votes, and but only men could vote in Greek days.
We also learnt about Jamaica. We learnt the positives and negatives of tourism. We wrote a letter to Barack Obama talking about the negatives of tourism, that they cause pollution and littering and crime. The positives are the Jamaican people earn more money and get more jobs. Then we also learnt about the climate and fair trade. We also learnt about the history of Jamaica, which includes Independence Day.
In art this year, since January, we got to design our own woven panel and make it.
Then we did still life, which is drawing 2D shapes and then making them look 3D. My favourite so far has been the still life.
My favourite has been the weaving. In DT, we have been doing moving toys. First we got to design our moving toy, and then we got into partners whose moving toy was like ours, and we started to make them. We first used a cardboard box, and then
we painted the cardboard box whatever colour it was. Mine was an under the sea themed one, so we painted our box blue and we did like octopus and seaweed in ours. And and then you make these little sticks where your characters like move up and down on, and you need to saw wood to make the right sizes.
I designed a space-themed moving toy, so my 3 mechanisms were a astronaut, an alien, and a rocket.
And me and Diana's 3 mechanisms were a mermaid, a dolphin, and a fish.
In French, we learnt the colours and the clothing. Next, we learnt about a beach scene and everything that was on it.
In ICT, we learned about how to make a slide on a non-electrical toy, which included its name and stuff about it. We also made our own personalised webpage that included games, pictures, music, and text.
In music, we have been learning how to play the brass instruments. Eve learned how to play the trumpet.
And Patrick here has been learning how to play the trombone.
And our fellow colleague James learns how to play the baritone. Some of the songs we've learned are Hot Cross Buns and Cha Cha Cha, and also Wrap It Up.
Learning how to play a brass instrument is tough at times because you have to work really hard on making sure your buzz sounds right. So you get the right sound coming out of your instrument.
In outdoor PE, we learned tag rugby and netball. I found them both really fun. In netball, I learned the rules and all the different types of throws.
In indoor PE, we were learning about gymnastics and lots of different other jumps. Once we were good with them, we got out the apparatus and started practicing.
In RE, we've been learning about the 10 plagues of Egypt and how Moses went to the king and demanded the slaves to be freed. And when the king said no 9 times, Moses talked to God, and God said that all the newborn babies will die.
We also learned about the Christmas story, and we watched this video about it where they were praying in the Garden of Gethsemane, and Roman soldiers came, and then the disciples cut off this man's ear.
After this, we were learning about Jewish Passover and the Last Supper. We compared Jewish Passover to the Last Supper, and the one thing that we found in common was that they both used the same plate.
My favourite part of RA was learning about the 10 plagues of Egypt.
My favourite bit in RE was also that.
We also learnt about Jesus' parables and teachings. At first I didn't quite know what to expect of them, but then they gradually got funner.
In PSHE, we have been doing getting on and falling out. We do this so we don't fall out in the playground so much with our friends.
Hi, we're in Year 6 and we've been learning in numeracy.
We've been doing long division, adding fractions, and the bus stop method, and actually it really helps in later life, and it's actually a life skill.
And in numeracy in Year 6, we've been also learning about adding fractions, and we were set a maths challenge. The whole school will have to work out how much money SASM gets and what they spend it on, and it was there was notes all around the school, and we had to answer the questions, and we had to understand why why SASM spends money on this, how it helps and stuff like that. And it was a really good way to use our mathematical skills, and we can use them in later life. So it was really fun, but also helpful.
In literacy this year, we have been learning about complaint letters. We were learning about how to use them and what language to do. We wrote a letter to Primark about not stocking fair trade products, and in our letter we were trying to get them to to stock fair trade products. We included all the things about how people work every day from early morning to late night trying to stock cotton, but they don't use it.
We also learned about Shakespeare in the next half term. We acted out parts of Romeo and Juliet and contrasted the characters each. We also did homework about Shakespeare and
compared the two different characters from any story we liked. We also learned about arguments and counter-arguments. We were getting two sides of the story. One of the stories we did was about talking on your mobile phone or even looking or playing a game whilst driving. Our other story was not wearing a school uniform to school and arguments for or against. So we did a big write which was levelled about the talking on your mobile phone whilst driving, and we had to focus on sophisticated connectives, and others was using also sophisticated words and level 5 punctuation like semicolons and brackets.
In science, we've been learning about evolution and Charles Darwin. For example, we learned about two types of the same bird can adapt to their environments and have different features.
Also in Year 6 we've been learning about the human body and the functions of organs and the journey when we eat food, and how the organs work and the names for different organs and how many we have in our body. And we also studied what the areas of your digestive systems are, and we also learned that when you take a bite out of food, it takes quite a long journey through your body.
In humanities this term, we've been learning about World War II, and in the World War II subject we did propaganda. And in propaganda we made our own posters, we learned about how it affected people, etc, etc, and now she's going to tell you about women at war.
In Women in War, we were talking about how women got to do men's job because they had to go to war. They did all sorts of jobs that we couldn't be able to do today. They made machinery. They looked after machinery. They were even on one of the front lines in the war, the actual war. So they drove. They went outside instead of doing the shopping. They also worked in factories creating munitions and vehicles.
In World War II, we also did Hitler's rise to power, and here's how it happened. Okay, so after World War War One, the German people were a bit fed up and annoyed because of the Treaty of Versailles. They didn't have many jobs or money or anything like that until Hitler came, and he gave people jobs, he gave people money, and he made them feel a whole lot better.
In World War II, we've also been looking at how Jews were a part of it. We found out that Jews were treated very horribly during World War II. They were blamed for the defeat in World War I. They were blamed for taking all their jobs and their money. They were cornered into a place in Germany where they weren't allowed to go anywhere, and Germans weren't allowed in their shops. They weren't allowed to clash with any Germans. They even separated Jewish children from German children. They had to wear a St. David's star on their shoulder to tell them to take them out from the crowd and show that they're Jews instead of Germans. And there was even a book made about them called The Poisonous Mushroom. The poisonous mushroom was all about the Jews and was read to children, very young children, and about how Jews and that they're poisonous and just treated them really unfairly.
Okay, one of the things we did for World War II is we went to Churchill Rooms in London, which was located underground because Churchill was scared that he would have got bombed if it was underground. And when we were in there, we did lots of things, like look at the cool computers in the computer room, and looked at a 20 or 100-year-old sugar, and went to the map room, which half the people didn't even know about. And yeah, and after we'd had a tour of the whole place, we went downstairs even more, and we made our own propaganda posters with a cool lady, I forgot her name now.
In DT this year, we've been doing shelters, and what we've been doing in shelters is we've been looking at different knots and studying different types of shelters, and eventually going into Chessington Woods and making our own shelters in groups. So at the start, we just looked at basic shelters like rabbit hutches and army bases and stuff, and then we moved on to look at knots with Mr. C, and yeah, we did all types of knots like the Clovis hitch and stuff like that. And then finally we came to DT, well no, the last bit of shelters in DT, where we went to the Chessington Woods and built our own shelters using branches and logs and stuff.
In PE, we learnt about football outdoors and the different skills and tactics that players use in real life, and how to tackle, and we played small matches and in our houses, and it was tough but also very fun and interesting for some of the people that were new to football. And in football we also learnt about how to still like control the ball but run really fast with it. And in indoor PE we learnt gymnastics with a professional gymnast called Lucy, and she helped us understand the basic moves in gymnastics, jumps, and how to like finish and start a gymnastic dance. And it was really fun working with her, and she learned she taught us how to do handstands, cartwheels, and all sorts of things, and especially on the bars. She told us to do stars on the bars, and also to make sure that we're safe, as well as doing amazing stuff.
In PSHE, we've been learning about going for goals and relationships. For example, going for goals, we learned about never to give up of what you want to do. And in relationships, we learned how people have different personalities but still get on.
In our read this year, we learnt about the Easter story and the 5 pillars of Islam, but we also learnt about funerals, and Father Robert, a priest, came in to talk to us about a normal funeral service.
We also had a mini market, which was the Bishop's Lentapil,
to raise money for people in Africa who are poor and do not have any schools.
In classes, groups of people from up to 4 to about 7 made stalls of their choice. You could only have one savoury stall and one sweet stall in each class, but other than that you could do any games, for example the goalie, or balloon golf, or darts.
In art, we have been doing perspective. We've been looking at different ways to draw, and we went to the National Gallery. We've been drawing in 2-point perspective to make things look realistic. In the National Gallery, there were many pictures drawn by various artists like Van Gogh. We saw the sunflowers, his chair, and his simple just drawings of landscapes that didn't make any sense and didn't have any perspective. We were looking about how things went into the distance and how the colours changed, and we also looked at various art pictures and we went to draw them ourselves. One of my favourite pictures was, I can't exactly remember the name, but at a particular angle you can see a stretched out skeleton head, and that just fascinated me. The ambassadors.